drop it like it's $44 billion on Twitter. Power panel. Cenk, Uygur, Brett, Erlich, Max Burns. Max is on Rebel headquarters. Everybody's checking that out. Brett, every once in a while, he'll pop into Rebel headquarters, like, hey, how you doing? And then get a lot of views because he's good at this. And he does happy half hour. There's a lot of happiness going on. There's a lot of power going on here. And one other thing that's going on today, well, actually, there's two other things. Of course, there's the Blue Apron giveaway today. So 150 of you will get $100 if you're members. If you play with us tonight on the members only bonus episode. And I'm gonna give away some cards. In fact, I read a comment where that might get a Blue Apron $100 card already. Anyways, but the main thing today is, guys, I mean, you saw how happy Anna was on the show the last couple of days. You know what? Things are actually turning up. Like, I know it sounds unbelievable, but Trump, Elon Musk, and Alex Jones all reeling today. Like, disastrous news for all three of them. Good day in America. USA. I like that, Edwin. Way to start it. All right, Brett, tell us that good news.
All right, let's get into this first story.
People want both parties to move from the fringes, from the extremes, back to the center.
That is Chris Wallace on his new show. Who's watching Chris Wallace? Sorry, who's talking to Chris Wallace or something like that? It's on HBO Max. I'm sure you know that. It was originally slated to be on CNN's like CNN Plus before they canceled that, embarrassingly. But undeterred, he continues to press his agenda on everyone, and that is the agenda of the mainstream media to reframe things in a way that benefits corporations. He says that, everybody wants to take it toward the center, and AOC pushed back.
I think a lot of people in this country may say yes, but it's important for us to dig into the substance of what that actually means. As someone who is often, I think, characterized as extreme, I, of course, would object to that. I do not believe that I am as extreme in the way that Marjorie Taylor Greene on the Republican side is extreme. The idea that there is an equating of believing in someone who believes in guaranteed universal health care in the United States with someone who believes that undocumented people should incur physical harm are somehow in the same level of extreme is something that I would object to.
So for people who are new to this, in mainstream media, what they do is say, hey, everything on the left is just as crazy as everything too far to the right. Let's meet in the middle. And then the middle conveniently turns out to be stuff that benefits major corporations that run ads on those networks. Now, this is a difficult question. Did AOC handle it correctly, incorrectly? Cenk, thoughts?
Yeah, so my main complaint about her answer is that it was too erudite. Ironically, I'm doing the same thing right now. I bring it down, like make it simpler and easier to understand. She's giving too much credence to Chris Wallace. Look, don't get me wrong. The tenor of the answer, well, the substance of the answer is correct. Let me put it that way. But here's how I would have answered it. No, Chris, I don't know that I would have said it exactly this way. I love you, brother, but the framing of that question is completely and utterly wrong. So number one, you say extremes as if they're as if our side is even extreme. I totally reject that. In fact, I think the extreme position is what you all in mainstream media call moderate. And at that point, of course, Chris Wallace is gonna jump out of his seat. How dare you? What do you mean? It's definitely the moderate position to be for corporate rule. Is it? Because then I would counter with these stats. I'm gonna go right away to graphic 5, okay? So for example, AOC's position, as is the position of all progressives, is to be in favor of paid family leave. Well, that polls at 84%. Yet Chris Wallace and everybody else in mainstream media said that Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema were moderates for killing that proposal. Well, who's extreme, Chris? Clearly Manchin's extreme. Clearly, the entire, not just the Trump guys, the entire Republican Party is intensely extreme for being against a proposal that 84% of Americans, and by the way, 74% of Republicans want. So who's extreme, Chris? And you say, oh, well, that's probably just one issue. No, first of all, as you'll see in my book, justicescomingbook.com, which you can pre-order at, the whole first chapter is dozens and dozens of polls that show that we're incredibly, our policy proposals are incredibly popular on almost every issue, but I'll just give you two more here. How about the federal minimum wage? Well, a new Amazon Ipsos poll released, this was from 2021, found that 80% of Americans believe the current federal minimum wage is not sufficient. 80%. So which one is the extreme position, Chris? Because AOC said we should raise the federal minimum wage. And 8 Democrats and every Republican said no. 80% of the people, American people, say yes. So obviously, Manchin, corporate Democrats like Coons, Carper, every Republican is super extreme to be against 80% of the American people. Finally, public option. This is not Medicare for all, it's not universal health care. It's like the bare minimum. Hey, while you have private insurance, can the government also offer you a public option for insurance that you could choose to take or not take? How does that poll? Well, that polls extremely high as always. So 68% at least saying yes, we want the public option. 18% saying they don't want it. So who's extreme, the 68% or the 18%? So every part of that premise is 100% wrong. And she was correct in what she said. She just said it way too politely. That's my opinion. Max.
I'll tell you, I've heard of media equivalency, but Chris Wallace really elevates it to an art. I mean, it is honestly portrayed as more extreme in this country to support canceling student debt than to stand in front of 20,000 people and say, let's use our Second Amendment rights to stop Democrats from stealing elections. I mean, we spend so much time as a country bringing Democrats onto supposedly crazy left-wing media and asking them to justify what is mainstream policy for 70, 80, as you said, % of this country. And yet I've never seen Chris Wallace sit down with a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Lauren Boebert and ask them to defend really any of the calls to violence that they have said at Trump rallies or at their own rallies. It is just a remarkable thing to see that these are painted as equally extreme when, if anything, what AOC is doing is representing more fearlessly than the Democratic establishment what a majority of people in this country actually want.
And by the way, not just the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Lauren Boeberts, I've never seen them ask what they call a moderate Republican or a moderate Democrat one tough question in their entire goddamn lives. And then it's more frustrating with Chris Wallace because Chris Wallace is actually pretty good at this. So we're fair. Like of all the interviewers, Chris Wallace usually asks the toughest questions. And even him, when it comes to the so-called centrists, nope. Oh, a beautiful, lovely, awesome, moderate corporate Democrat, and Republican, tell us how awesome you are, right? So why didn't he ever ask them? Isn't it incredibly extreme to be against paid family leave? Isn't it incredibly extreme to be against higher wages when the American people obviously want higher wages? Never, not once, not Chris Wallace, not any other reporter. They call themselves reporters, but they've never asked a tough question of the people who actually rule this country, which is the people who serve corporations and the donors.
And you'd think you'd have enough evidence by pointing to those polls to be like, all right, everything that AOC advocates for is in line with most people in America. And that would be enough to say that like everything that she says is not crazy. But let's look at that show's existence. The reason that show exists is because Chris Wallace was on Fox News, which has leaned into whichever way the wind is blowing and said to all of America once. Chris Wallace one time, maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times on that network dared to say the sky is blue.
Yeah.
Everybody else is out there saying the sky is purple, the sky is purple. Ducey being like, well, the purple sky report's coming up after this, and next we're gonna talk about traffic. Everybody else is the sky is purple, the sky is purple. They said, get out. And because he dared to one time support reality. CNN is like, come this way, sir. You've got your own show here. And then they imply that everything Chris Wallace does is fair because he was just slightly more fair than the wackos on Fox News. And when he frames all kinds of questions, I watched this interview. This interview was crazy insane. To set up that first question, he shows a poll saying like, we asked people and 37% of people said that the Democrats are too extreme and 38% of the people said that Republicans are too extreme. That is the makeup of the parties relative to the population of America. So Democrats said they're crazy and Republicans said they're crazy. That has nothing to do with what most people want. The stats Cenk read you are what most people want, and that should be your barometer for seeing who's too extreme and who's not. But Chris Wallace, undeterred, presses it, and he goes on CNN. The clips that people are passing around are him promoting his show on CNN. So this is how he sells the people who still watch CNN to go watch his show. Take a look.
She does not seem to think, or at least is not saying publicly, that there needs to be a course correction in terms of the Democratic Party, which is interesting.
No, it is interesting, and she absolutely does not think that there should be a course correction. I talked to her about the fact that even Republicans said she'd moved too far to the left. Some Democrats who kept their distance from her in the campaign thought she'd moved too far to the left. But for instance, on the issue of inflation, where some people are saying, well, look, we need less government spending, that stoked demand over supply. She says, no, we need to go after corporations. There's been price gouging. There have been windfall profits. So she's not talking about cutting back on social programs. She's talking from a democratic socialist point of view about full speed ahead on trying to rejigger our American economy and our American marketplace.
This drives me crazy. This drives me so crazy because he loves to get in those words, democratic socialist. And someone recently on, I forget what show it was, put a comment in and they were asking a question, how do I communicate with and they said boomer parents who are watching CNN who think that AOC and everybody and most people who watch TYT are too extreme and love socialism. I'd ask your parents, what are the things they love most about their lives that the government gives them? And they'll say Social Security and Medicare. That is just in line with all the programs like paid family and medical leave. That is just in line with universal health care. That is going to be another program like that, one that they like. Chris Wallace, when AOC pointed out the price gouging in that interview, Chris Wallace literally said, she says, listen, I understand you're talking about inflation, but really when I look at the stats, it is the corporations who are trying to extort people because they're trying to see how much they're gonna pay for diapers. And Chris Wallace goes, I can't, he literally says, I'm trying to wrap my head around that one. That's
try harder.
Giant corporations felt like they weren't making enough profit during the pandemic. They were. People's demand came back a little bit, back to normal even, and they're trying to make up all the money they lost when we had a pandemic. They are bilking everyone for every cent they can get out of them. Meanwhile, their profits have not gone down. And everybody even loves like a windfall profit tax. And Chris Wallace is there on behalf of corporations to represent Fox News on the new CNN and say, I can't believe it. And Kate Baldwin, who I normally like, is like, tell me more.
Nah, it's just that what you see on cable news is 100% corporate propaganda. And that was an excellent example of it. And as always, unlike them, we're not just gonna say it like, oh yeah, well, this is it, and then let's move on. We're gonna prove it, okay? So listen to what he said. AOC is for government services and not for corporate price gouging. Well, that part is correct, right? Now, he makes us sound extreme. But wait, is it extreme? I showed you exit polling on the day of the election, and I'll just give you 2 out of the about 8 or so polls that I showed you, which all are on the progressive side. And they asked people whose #1 issue was inflation, not the average voter. #1 issue is inflation. They're really worried about inflation. They said, should we do it by not raising minimum wage? 68% no, that doesn't make sense. I want you to raise wages so it can keep up with inflation. The same number that you see in the poll I quoted earlier. And then on price gouging, that 83% said, yeah, it's definitely the corporate price gouging, and we want you to do something about it. Yet when you heard it on CNN just now, you saw it with your own eyes. He said, that's her democratic socialist idea. But he said something along the lines, and you can rewind and watch it, about how that's not how he sees the American economy and the American marketplace. As if the pro-corporate position is more pro-America, when I just showed you the numbers, and that's not what Americans agree with at all. So we have the numbers, we have absolute facts. Chris Wallace and CNN doesn't mention a single fact about what American people actually want. They just tell you, and it's so subtle. That's why it's, honestly, you gotta give them credit. Mainstream media is so much better at this than Fox News. Fox News is a blunt instrument. They're just like, oh, Democrats eat babies, whatever, they steal elections, who cares? You don't have to win an election, you just take it, right? That's dumb. And it works for right-wingers, and I feel terrible for right-wingers that works for them. But for other people, you have to be more sophisticated. And the sophisticated way of saying it is never to mention the polling, never to mention what the American people actually want. Just tell them the American marketplace is in favor of cutting government spending that goes to the average American, and the American economy is not in favor of regulating corporations at all, right? That is for the democratic socialists. So look, Chris Wallace, he's the best of them, and he sucks, okay? So I got more, but go ahead, Max.
I'll give Chris Wallace credit for his sleight of hand here. Just because he speaks in a monotone, he expects you to believe that the fact that we're talking about canceling student debt, social spending, what he's calling for is austerity budgeting at a time when corporate profits are the most extreme they have ever been. And he's hoping you won't notice that that is more extreme than anything AOC or Democrats are even proposing. And he's acting like all these things that AOC is proposing are things the Democrats are voting on and passing. I wish. The fact is, Democrats are slow rolling any kind of major spending legislation, but corporations are not slow rolling those profits. And Chris Wallace just hopes you'll think that one of those things is normal when it is absolutely not.
Yeah, look, the last thing I'll say is go harder. Whether it's AOC or Bernie or any progressive, do not let them get away with it. She questioned his framing, great, wonderful, right? But give him numbers and challenge him and say, you tell me, why is it normal that in the midst of inflation, when everybody in Washington is talking about cutting wages, that you think it's normal for the oil companies to make record profits and then pass that all on to the consumers, but the consumers aren't allowed to get higher wages? Why is that normal? Go ahead, I dare you to defend that. And by the way, when you defend that, the other guys will accidentally be doing an ad for us. Because when you get the CNN anchor to go, yeah, well, of course, the no good progressives say you should have higher wages. Can you believe them? And the no good progressives, they say that the corporations are making too much profit when they only made a record profit this quarter and the quarter before and the quarter before. Can you believe it? Thank you for the ad. That's why you gotta hit them. But that takes courage.
Yep. All right, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, Donald Trump's tantrum is amazing, it gets worse. And did he just admit accidentally in his feverish rage that he committed a crime? We'll have that and more when we return.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Brett, and Max with you guys, and also Mariposa Bows, because they just became a member. All right, love it, thank you, way to be an American hero. Brett, go.
All right, let's get into this. Donald Trump's tantrums are fantastic right now. No sooner did a lot of his favored candidates underperform and in many cases lose on election day than he began on Truth Social going after Ron DeSantis, who many very clearly thought it was very clear that he would be the next poster boy for the GOP, a Trump light that plays well with the corporates. Anyhow, so in the last 24 hours, Trump's tirade has included posts about QAnon memes, DeSantis rants, and racist remarks, among many, many other things. But on second glance, during his flip out about Ron DeSantis, did he admit to criming? You be the judge. Here we go. As he's yelling at DeSantis, he truths. So help him God. I also fixed DeSantis' campaign, which had completely fallen apart. I was all in for Ron, and he beat Gillum. But after the race, when votes were being stolen by the corrupt election process in Broward County, and Ron was going down 10,000 votes a day, along with now Senator Rick Scott, I sent in the FBI and the US attorneys, and the ballot theft immediately ended. Just prior to them running out of the votes necessary to win, I stopped his election from being stolen. Wait a minute, you sent in the FBI? I had not heard about that. I thought all your election claims about Stop the Steal started in 2020. But no, apparently there was a prequel that we hadn't heard about. What's the situation? Who knows? Well, someone from the Washington Post, Philip Bump, tries to clarify. We'll all be the judge of what he says happened and whether it's true. 2018 was a remarkably good year for Democrats, except for Florida. Their Democratic advantages in gubernatorial and Senate races evaporated, leading to narrow Republican victories. DeSantis won by about 30 votes. Incumbent Governor Rick Scott won election in the Senate to the Senate by about 10,000 votes. Because the race was so close, as he says, Floridians had to wait for all the mail-in ballots to be counted before Scott's race could be called. But DeSantis' race was called on election night. As you can see here, AP Politics tweeted, breaking, Ron DeSantis wins the election. That was on November 6th, that's the day of the election. There was a pre-call earlier. But after the race was called, DeSantis' opponents did close the lead and the margin tightened, but it wasn't enough to overturn the results as people had thought they would be, and called them at the time when they thought they could be confident enough to make a call. And 2 days later, Rick Scott raised concerns about Democrat interference in his race, but there was no stolen election narrative around DeSantis' election. And so this is what Bump writes. The question then becomes, did Trump ask the FBI to shut down the vote count in Florida on Scott's behalf? There's no evidence that he did. That's what they say. By all accounts, the process of counting ballots in the targeted counties continued slowly, not without contentiousness, until all votes were tallied. An investigation later determined that a number of problems had surrounded the counting in Broward County, but none of them that affected the outcome of any races. There was no evidence of rampant illegal voting. So long story short, if you read that and you're like, is he just unhinged and rambling? Is he wrong? Is he lying? Or is he admitting to a crime that he didn't need to admit to because he's so stupid and angry that he forgot to cover for himself? The answer seems like it's probably he lied. But Cenk, thoughts?
Yeah, so look, to be fair to him, is it really stupid to admit crimes? He's admitted dozens of crimes on national television. He's like, oh yeah, I fired James Comey because he was investigating me about my connections to the Russians. Well, you can't fire somebody like in that position because he's investigating you. And there was never any consequence. There was never any consequences for all those crimes. Merrick Garland's still twiddling his thumbs for trying to figure out, oh, well, he stole national secrets. Gee, I wonder what I should do about it, right? And the list goes on and on. So he can admit any crime he likes. He can literally say, I shot someone yesterday at Mar-a-Lago, and then I dragged them up and buried them next to my wife at my other golf course. And nobody will investigate him. Or they'll investigate him and they'll do breathless reports about, oh my God, there could be an indictment soon. Oh my God, indictment, maybe, right? And then nothing will ever come of it. Because, so yes, if that's true what he said, and by the way, MAGA, I mean, there's a great question that Brett's asking, but I wanna ask you, MAGA, so do you think he's telling the truth? You're gonna be, oh yeah, of course he's telling the truth. Well, then that's a crime. Awkward. Or do you think he's lying, that he didn't commit a crime, but he was just bragging about committing a crime? Which one is it? Because it's definitely one of them, okay? And then if you say, well, he was bragging about committing a crime, but he didn't really commit it, because you want to get credit for the crime. Do you? Do you? And the reality is, yes, with the right wing, If you admit you're a criminal, they're like, boy, that's how you're strong. You said in the feds and the deep state and you rigged the election. There's no, I mean, you can't talk to MAGA. But that goes to the point here, which is, look, Brett's gonna tell you more. Full nuclear meltdown for Trump. I mean, full scale attacking Ron DeSantis. The war has begun. He's firing not the first shot, the first 200 shots, right? He has no brakes in the car, right? He's going after Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, for no reason. I literally cannot fathom. Youngkin never said anything. He's just randomly he's finding random Republicans and punching them in the face, right? And that's what he does. And by the way, MAGA loves that. And so this is going to be the biggest fight of my lifetime in politics. The entire Republican establishment against Donald Trump. And for all the people saying, oh yeah, Trump is done. He ain't done, man. The only one set of people get to decide, and that's the voters. And if you think the voters have abandoned him already, you don't know anything. So I'm not saying that he's gonna win. I'm not saying the voters aren't gonna leave him, because his one Achilles heel is electability, okay? But it's gonna be a knockdown, drag out fight, that's for sure. And you're already seeing it.
Max, what do you think?
Like, one of the toughest jobs in this country is trying to figure out when Donald Trump is admitting to a crime and when he's just been up for 3 days and he's hallucinating and he thinks that he's talking to a press conference. I mean, it's entirely possible that he's made this up. And the reason I think that might be true is that this would be the only thing that did not leak out of his administration immediately. I mean, this is a White House that was not really known for secrecy or competence. And the idea that anyone would be able to keep a secret that big for more than 6 minutes or as long as it took to get the Washington Post on the phone just beggars belief. I mean, at the end of the day, Donald Trump does not have the forethought or the competence to pull off something like this. I mean, he himself would probably have told the press about this if he'd done it.
Yeah, look, we're the fairest show in America. I'm serious. Because number one, here's all three of us saying he probably did not commit that crime, okay? We all hate Donald Trump, but we're being fair. I don't think he committed that crime. I think he's just lying. It's one, and but you're saying he's lying. Dude, come on, get real. It's one of his 2,000 lies today, okay? So, but I don't think he committed the crime. And by the way, to be fair on another point of view, did he help Ron DeSantis win? Was he critical in Ron DeSantis winning the first time around? Absolutely, 100%.
That's the thing. That's what's weird about the tone of the misguided nature of this tantrum. What you should say, Trump, is without me, you're nothing. But what you shouldn't say is without me, you're nothing. And then you dumped me and then you went on to great success. There's a difference there. You can't say that you tooted and booted me. That's not you sounding awesome. You need to be the person who uses other people in order to adhere to this like weird strut your stuff alpha dog thing that you're doing. What you're saying on Truth Social, which isn't even the beleaguered Twitter, is shouting into like he's got all the stuffed animals up on the table and on his bed and he's yelling at them like they're real people. Like that's what's so sad and pathetic about it in my book. But the sadness and patheticness goes on. So let's talk about this Youngkin stuff and some of the more ridiculous tantrums that he threw. So as you're looking at on the screen right now, this is what Donald Trump said about Glenn Youngkin. Who's Glenn Youngkin? Exactly. Why do you care? Unless you live in Virginia. You don't know what he's saying when he says Youngkin. Now that's an interesting take. Sounds Chinese, doesn't it? In Virginia, couldn't have won without me. This is the governor of Virginia. I endorsed him, capital E. Did a very big Trump rally for him telephonically, weird word. Got MAGA to vote for him, or he couldn't have come close to winning. But he knows that and admits it, besides having a hard time with the Dems in Virginia, but he'll get it done. What is happening, dude? Like, what is going on? So This is another thing, like you're picking on some random person. Like I remember when I was in high school, one time everybody was like making fun of each other, and we just went down on our basketball team to like make fun of the person who we thought was on a lower part of the social ladder than us. I very quickly realized this was a horrible, mean thing to do. But Donald Trump is on the freshman basketball team at this point being like, who's the shorter guy than me? You, Glenn Youngkin. Now what else riles up my fans? Racist epithets that don't even make sense because they don't have to anymore.
Yeah, I mean, what is that? What, like, A, I have no idea why he's attacking him. No one does, okay? B, the best you got, because he's a straight white male, just like the rest of you, is your name sounds Chinese. I mean, really? Look, I don't even know if the anti-Asian racists are like impressed by that. Like they're probably confused by that. They're like, yeah, goddamn Chinese, but he's white, I don't get it. Okay, and it doesn't even sound that Chinese. I don't understand anything he's saying, but we love the guy. Okay, so of course he's been done anti-Asian racism before when he called Elaine Chao Coco Chow. She was in his cabinet. Okay, so yeah, China loving Coco Chow. And then like MAGA will say with a straight face, I don't see the racism. Where do you see it? And mainstream media will debate it. Is it true? Is it not true? What the hell? Coco Chow? That's insane, right? There's nothing non-racist about that. What's the non-racist interpretation of Coco Chow? The China loving Coco Chow. It's so absurd, Max.
I'm not even sure how Donald Trump thinks that he's crafted this narrative that he made Glenn Youngkin. Glenn Youngkin certainly doesn't think so. The largest story of his gubernatorial campaign was Donald Trump repeatedly calling the Youngkin campaign, saying, do you want me to come to Virginia and do a rally for you? I can do a rally for you. And Youngkin saying, no, please, Mr. President, just stay home. We don't need you here. Because by that point, Donald Trump was toxic in Virginia politics. So at some point, I think Donald Trump's feelings got hurt. And now he's concocted this narrative to soothe his bruised ego. But the press talked to Youngkin today, and Youngkin all but said, the former president's nuts. I have no idea what the guy's talking about. And I mean, at this point, you have to think that he's doing this because in 2016, he rose to prominence, punching every Republican he could find in the face. The difference was back then, he wasn't the head of the party. So any messes he's complaining about are by definition, Donald Trump's messes.
Yeah, and it's a great point. Youngkin specifically asked him not to help, right? Because it would have hurt his chances. That's why even in Trump's message, he's like, I did a rally for him telephonically.
So weird.
Well, that's not a rally. That's just a phone call. Okay. And a phone call he didn't ask for, and that slightly hurt him. And so, but guys, last thing for me is he's full scale meltdown, right? He's just, there's no brakes at all in the car. He's going at 200 miles an hour. Like we're all watching in slow motion a car crash that's about to happen, right? But for MAGA, they look at it and go, ooh, that guy's smooth.
Yeah,
it's amazing. You don't see that he's a baby? How could they not see that he's a baby? I mean, all he ever does is cry. He's always like, oh, I'm Youngkin, I didn't tell him he's Asian, and his name is, and then DeSantis is the sanctimonious. Jesus Christ. Here, I want to give somebody $100, okay? I'm being serious, because one of our members wrote in here and made a great point. Yes, dirge. I would just love for some interviewer to ask Trump what sanctimonious means and how DeSantis is sanctimonious. Oh, it's a great point. It's a genius point. There's a 0% chance he knows what it means, okay? So dirge, you would be better than any reporter in the country because that's as good a question as you could have for Trump. $100 Blue Apron gift card. Email at rewards@tyt.com. We'll verify that it's you and give it to you. Nice job.
Awesome. Let's move on. Actually, we have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to go through our dear friends over at the Daily Wire, I want to say, one of those daily conservative outlets, and they're going to tell you why you need to get married. They're going to play some creepy music, and you're not going to love it. Don't Don't go away.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Brett, and Max with you guys. Also, Marion Mills, Joseph Kidney, and Elizabeth Wilson, they all just became members, and they all just became American heroes. So hit that join button below the video if you're on YouTube, or tyt.com/join. Make sure you're participating today, because I already gave away a whole bunch, but we give 150 Blue Apron gift cards. They're worth $100, 150 of them to our members tonight in the bonus episode for members. All right, Brett.
All right, let's get into this next story.
My most valuable possession is that the enemies of freedom and the human species and God, big G, big O, big D, triple exclamation point to infinity, are my enemies.
Well, you got a lot more enemies, billions of them, and they're dollars you have to pay. So the amount of money that Alex Jones has to pay in damages, believe it or not, is getting larger in the wake of the judgments about his defamation and Sandy Hook trial. InfoWars host Alex Jones and his company were ordered by a judge Thursday to pay an extra $473 million for promoting false conspiracy theories about Sandy Hook school massacre, bringing the total judgment against him in a lawsuit filed by the victims' families to a staggering $1.44 billion. You know what's cool? $1 billion. You know what's not cool? $1.44 billion in damages. The punitive damages include about $323 million for the plaintiff's attorney's fees and costs, and $150 million for violations under the Unfair Trade Practices Act. This is in addition to in October when 6 jurors ordered Jones to pay $965 million to compensate the 15 plaintiffs for defamation, infliction of emotional distress, and violations of Connecticut's Unfair Trade Practices Act. What is Alex Jones saying on his show? Well, according to Graphic 6, on his show Thursday, Jones called the award ridiculous and a joke and said he has little money to pay the damages. Quote, well, of course I'm laughing at it, he said. It'd be like if you sent me a bill for $1 billion in the mail. Oh man, we got you. It's all for psychological effect. It's all the Wizard of Oz. When they know full well the bankruptcy going on and all the rest of it, I have almost nothing. And then Jones' lawyer, Norm Pattis, wrote in a text message to the Associated Press, quote, to paraphrase Karl Marx, okay, the verdict was tragedy. This latest ruling is farce. It makes our work on the appeal that much easier. Thoughts, Cenk?
Yeah, well, first of all, man, we are all of a sudden in an alternate universe where Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Alex Jones are all reeling. They're in all meltdown mode. So Trump's attacking every Republican in the world, foaming at the mouth, and every Republican has turned on him. Fox News has turned on him. Elon Musk is saying literally every day, he said it yesterday, he said it today, we could go bankrupt, Twitter could go bankrupt. He might lose $44 billion. He's already lost $100 billion in his net worth on Tesla stock alone. He's in disastrous shape. Meanwhile, Alex Jones owes like $1 billion, and he's like, I got almost nothing left, right? Yes. Okay, so, but that's of course not true. Where does he make all of his money? Well, he makes a ton of money, as it turns out, from his shop. Okay, well, all right, interesting. So, by the way, we looked into it. What are his top 2 selling items? It's the saddest thing you'll ever hear in your life. First is penis pills, to which I say, of course. Okay,
made from real penis.
Well, I don't think that's where he was going with it. Although they might think like, oh yeah, well then that'll work. Okay, but the second one is the saddest of all: brain pills. That's so sad. That's so sad. But like he says, I don't have any money. Well, okay. I mean, I think they're absolutely worthless, but you make a lot of money off them. So we'll take all the penis pills and brain pills and flush them down the toilet, right? Because they're obviously worthless. Because if Alex Jones took them, it didn't work. Okay? So, but you have all that. You still make a lot of revenue from your show, so they could actually get that for the rest of your life. Now, I'm not sure that they will, because law enforcement, when it comes to rich people in this country, sucks. But he's obviously panicked about it, and I love it.
Now, you know that you really stepped in it when you could win that record Powerball jackpot and you're still not in the clear for the weight of your lies. We're talking about an amount of money here that is staggering. And Alex Jones has done his best to try and move assets away so that they can't be seized. A judge today actually froze Alex Jones's accounts because they suspected he was trying to move money away to avoid it being liable for that judgment. So that's a real tough situation. I think we're going to see Alex Jones buying a lot of lottery tickets in the weeks to come.
Yeah, and look, there's one more thing about this that fits into the theme of this week, which is, hey, it looks like sanity's back. Like a lot of Republicans voted against crazy Republicans, and that was just so refreshing to see. So I still don't agree with the people they did vote for, right? Like among the Republicans that they consider to be sane, Greg Abbott, Brian Kemp, Ron DeSantis. I don't like those guys at all. But at least for the lunatics who said that reality doesn't exist, Republican voters stayed away and said, no, we don't want that. So that was the main theme of election night, was sanity. And here we are. Now it turns out you actually can't lie about people in public, and you can't threaten them, and you can't ruin their lives when you're lying about them. And by the way, if Dominion wins against Fox News, like, we would actually go back to a country where you can't brazenly lie and say insane things on air and egg people on to do weird, violent things with your lies. And that would be an incredible relief.
And thematically, a lot of this has been proven with Elon Musk taking over Twitter. Like, you have these folks that are like, I can do and say whatever I want. It's so easy. You don't need rules on anything. I can, free speech absolutism. Elon Musk shows up and tries to free speech absolute Twitter, and it fails miserably. All these things they thought they could get away with, they're not getting away with anymore. It's also been so exhausting, and it's like almost difficult to enjoy the victory, though I'm still enjoying it, when you're just like, yeah, this is what we've been saying all along. You're showing up and pretending that you knew this all the time, and it's not quite what we've been saying, but this is exactly what we've been saying all along. You can say whatever you want, but it has consequences. And the last thing I'll say is that it is so choice that the defense that, or the invective that Alex Jones has against the justice system is that they're talking in these crazy, exaggerated Wizard of Oz terms, when that's what this guy does all the time. Like, oh my God, the system's so messed up. They're saying like, oh, it's whole Wizard of Oz reality. It's like, that's what you say it is. So they are just reacting in the reality that you've been declaring for years and years is how everything works. So good luck paying your way out of Oz.
Yeah, that is a massive case of projection. And I agree with Brett. It was Agatha all along. All right.
The lesson for Alex Jones, though, and the lesson for Elon Musk, and the lesson for Donald Trump is all the same. They are clearly not taking enough brain pills. They need to double the dose.
So good. All right. They're definitely swallowing some bitter pills of wisdom. All right. Let's get into this next story about wedding groomers. Take a look at this.
I married my wife like most people marry their wife because she was hot, she was beautiful, she was fun, she was smart, she was all those things. But it wasn't till about 10 years after we had been together when I started to think like, oh, for the first 10 years I was thinking, well, of course she has no capacity for reason. I don't understand a word she said. But then I kept noticing that she was right a lot of the time when I couldn't understand it. And I started to think, oh, she's actually seeing the world from a different point of view. And that is like putting on those red and blue glasses that suddenly turn the world into 3 dimensions. You suddenly become one flesh, one person, and you see things in a new and deeper and richer way. And that to me transforms everything.
That is Andrew Klavan telling you about the wonders of marriage and how after 10 years you can finally learn that the person you married is actually indeed a person. I do want to show some more videos that are equally as ridiculous and point some stuff out about them, but Cenk, reaction to to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so as you're gonna see in the videos next, this is a political point that the right wing is making now. They're trying to drive the young men that watch them to immediately get married to their girlfriends, right or wrong, because they think single women are costing them the election. So they want you to change your entire life so they could have a slight political advantage. But the way they're doing it is hilarious. Well, when I married my wife, I thought she wasn't, you had no capacity for reason. You know what I'm saying, right? I mean, don't we all? We're women. Hello, right? So for 10 years, I was like, what the hell with this lady? But at least she's hot, right? And then I realized, hey, she might be making some good points. Hey, by the way, I got news for you, brother. You were probably the idiot all along, okay? You were the one making no sense for those 10 years. You're lucky she put up with you. Jesus, and they think that's going to be appealing to single women who are voting against them.
So insane.
It's unbelievable. I cannot understand the right wing, man. Their lack of logic is just, and empathy is stunning.
Max,
I have my doubts that this guy is right, not least because he thinks you need 3D glasses to make the actual world 3D. And it's already 3D, but sure, it's his wife's fault.
Oh, so bad. That's such a devastating point. So there's other people that are obviously way better known, like Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro. They probably have more coherent versions of this point, right? Wrong. Cue the super duper weird music. Go for it.
Probably better to get married when you're young, because then you grow up. If you're still an adolescent by the time you're 40, you're a creep. You're the sort of person that you don't even want to be around. So you don't want to be the oldest person at the frat party. That is not pretty. There's something rotten about that, and I mean in that contemptible sense.
If the marriage happens late, this can't happen. The fact that my wife can still look at me as the person who, was 23 and just out of law school, and she can say, I see through all this crap, right? Like none of this makes a bit of difference to me. Right? The person who you are is not the person who the rest of the world sees. It's the person who I've known since long before you were that to the rest of the world. That's an amazing thing. It also gives you the ability to have somebody who calls you on your bullshit, which is like an actual real thing. Once you get, to a certain level of power, people just are really, really afraid to call you on your bullshit. And having a group of people, whether it's friends or particularly your wife, who's able to do that is vital, because if you don't have that, you spin off the rails incredibly fast.
I think every single one of us got married relatively broke. Or at least, you're right, I think every single one of us did.
Then we sold ourselves to corporations and corporate interests that bankrolled this super weird boys club atmosphere where Jordan Peterson saying, don't be a child anymore. And literally in the center of the table is a bowl of gummy bears. That is a frat party. You realize you're just doing the same thing. And the music behind it, like I get these things on my feed on Instagram and I'm like, you're making fun of Jordan Peterson, right? That is not a serious Jordan Peterson video. No, they love this. People eat this up because of this, not the substance, but the form. There's some inspirational music. They see Daily Wire, they see Jordan Peterson. It's absolute BS. Two more quick points. One, Ben Shapiro just admitted that he's lying to you on a regular basis. He says the only person who knows me and the only person who really sees through all my BS is my wife. And I am then, by definition, BSing the entire population of America in the world when I get up there and I say things that I obviously don't believe in. I'm just lying to get MAGA people to like me so they can be voters and help me get corporate tax cuts for the rich. That's it. And finally, Jordan Peterson just made fun of a bunch of disaffected young men. Jordan Peterson said, listen guys, if you're not married at 40, you're a loser. And usually he gets mad at me for saying stuff like that. He gets mad at us for saying like, oh my God, these pathetic losers, just go find someone to date. No, he just went after incels. My dear disaffected fellow whites, can you believe that Jordan Peterson is that ruthless and mean to you? I believe in you. Let me be your new tiny father figure. Put your tiny hand in mine. I will be your preacher, teach you anything you have in mind. I'm your George Michael, just like Jordan Peterson has been equally creepy to the lyrics of that song his entire life.
Wow, that was amazing. Okay, now I'm going to show you why they're doing this. So we showed it to you yesterday. This is Jesse Waters on Fox News explaining their political problem, which they're trying to address in this hilariously goofy way. Watch.
Single women are breaking for Democrats by 30 points. And this makes sense when you think about how Democrat policies are designed to keep women single. So we need these ladies to get married. And it's time to fall in love and just settle down. Guys, go put a ring on it.
Yeah, that'll work, by the way. So they have a certain ideology and principles and philosophy, and then as soon as they get married, they go, oh, I no longer believe that. I am now under the control of the superior male. No, you schmuck. It's different demographics. So the younger voters in America under 40 years old are very progressive. The older voters are more conservative. So that's why married women who are generally older are more likely to vote for Republicans. Single women who are generally younger are much more progressive. They're not going to magically become conservative overnight after their marriage. But these guys are all dumb. I'm not talking about Republican voters in this case. I'm talking about right-wing media. They're like, oh yeah, that's right. If we get them to get married, then they'll lose all of their free will. And then they'll vote for us, right? And then we'll all go on air and we'll insult them and we'll say, you have no mind of your own. You can't even reason with anyone. So now vote for me. Okay, good luck with that strategy, good luck. But my favorite part, of course, is them telling all their male voters, hurry up and get married, have a lot of kids, who cares, go, 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 go. We need to convert the women into our voters, hurry up, please. Hilarious, Max.
It's really important here, I think, to break down what Jesse Waters is really saying. Because most of these women stay single longer now because they're either pursuing education or they're making careers for themselves. So what Jesse Waters is basically saying is these women are too educated and too professional to fall for the BS we're selling. So we gotta get them out of the workforce and out of school earlier so that they'll actually believe Republican talking points. And to Ben Shapiro's point, I take issue if he thinks that his wife is the only one willing to call him on his BS. He should check his Twitter mentions. There are thousands of people willing to call him out right now.
So good. It's absolutely correct. I love it. We have reached the hour. Are we done?
Unfortunately, we are.
Listen, with the other story we were gonna do is a story about Joe Rogan and Matt Walsh doing some invective against trans people. And if you want a deeper analysis of how Jordan Peterson completely blows up that game, go to Rebel HQ, youtube.com/Rebel HQ. My video this week is precisely about how Jordan Peterson can't answer a simple question like, do you believe in God? And that blows up their entire approach to what is a woman? So take that and go look it up.
All right, you can check out Brent and Max there. You guys are awesome. Thank you for joining us. In the second hour, we have more delicious right-wing meltdown. Elon Musk is apparently this close to bankruptcy. That's what he keeps saying. The details on it are amazing. He's already backpedaled out of a disastrous program. And Donald Trump versus the Republicans round 2 will explain. We'll be right back.
Elon.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.